Very nice being a part of this program, and my congratulations to Care Ratings on their 30th anniversary celebrations. Really a very apt theme for the Amrit Kal, and trade matters, and it matters a lot. When we look at free trade agreements or comprehensive economic partnerships, the idea is not just some duty concessions on both sides or opening the markets, getting access on a expanded range of products. You are basically expanding your partnership with those countries, which gives a sense of confidence to business persons on both sides, which encourages trade and investment flow, which allows or encourages for greater degree of trust between businesses and governments, including even custom border officials between the two countries. And therefore, the very concept of a comprehensive partnership covers a very wide range of economic aspects. It could also include what happens to our students who go there and gain education. Would they get a chance to get trained or some work experience? It involves faster approvals on SPS issues or for our pharma products. It involves encouraging investments on both sides, technology transfer in many areas. So it's like really getting into a deeper collaboration with that country or that region. And of course, Australia and UAE both are very, very valued partners on the geopolitical front. But with the CEPA with UAE and of course the ECTA agreement with Australia, which we plan to expand in the coming months, we'll be looking at much greater trade, much greater flow of investments, and much more seamless transfer of goods, services, and money flow between these regions. In addition to that, as you may be aware, we are in dialogue with the UK, with the EFTA countries, that's Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Iceland. We have the 27 bloc EU, which is in dialogue for a SIPA. Canada and we are looking at an early progress trade agreement, like an early harvest agreement, where we can capture the low hanging fruits and get going. And I'm sure your audience will be happy to know that I almost get a request every 15, 20 days from one more country who wants to also do an FTA with us. But for lack of our ability to juggle so many balls at one time and manage so many negotiations, because each negotiation stands on its own feet. Circumstances and offensive and defensive interests vary country to country. You have to crystal gaze 50 years into the future because you're kind of entering into a legal agreement for the long term. It's a very, very elaborate process. We can never put it into a time capsule. Always takes time, but always ends up giving us a win-win solution if done smartly. Thank you.
I think that calls for a round of applause. If, you know, if the minister is receiving, proposals practically every alternate day from other countries, it clearly looks like this Amrit Kal is going to be much brighter than perhaps even the most optimistic estimates that are being thrown around. Mr. Minister, let me come to the UAE agreement itself. Do you see that as a stepping stone to be able to export through the UAE, because it would be a near free trade agreement, to the African states as well, with whom UAE could have a lot of connections already?
In fact, that was one of the important elements of our dialogue with the UAE. Almost all industry participants, and I'm sure, Lata, you're aware, that the level of stakeholder consultations that the Modi government does is unprecedented. And it's two-way. So you may recall, and many friends here may recall, that India chose to walk out of RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, the block of 14, 15 countries, because it was completely irrational to enter that block in the first place. For the life of me, I've looked at all the old files. I can't till date crack why India ever went into negotiation with RCEP, particularly when we have an agreement with ASEAN, we have an agreement with Japan and Korea. We were already at an advanced stage with Australia at that time, which was aborted. And New Zealand, our total trade is $300 million. 300 billion, that's 2,500 crores. We were actually entering into an agreement, a FTA, with China and Indian industry uniformly. And I recall between June, when I became a minister, June 19 for Commerce and Industry, and October, when we finally made up our mind, and 4th November, Prime Minister announced, and that was a very bold announcement in that August gathering, to decide we will not be a part of RCEP. Not one association, not one sector of industry, not one economist or stakeholder, save and except a rare exception, who were more theoretical than practical. Just nobody wanted RCEP. But the country had been forced in 2012, and having gone in, we continued to pursue that path. But fortunately, the stakeholders gave us the confidence that this is not good for India, and we walked out. Similarly, every one of these free trade agreements, we do 3 levels of engagements. The line ministries do it with stakeholders, Commerce and Industry works with stakeholders, and then we work with the line ministries to ensure that we protect everybody's interests. Wherever it needs, we kind of educate Indian industry also. There are times you have to be a little more liberal and outward and forward looking, because ultimately you need a win-win solution. You can't have a situation that we want India to get an open market access in every country, but we will keep into a closed box our markets. So we have to see where we have our competitive strengths, what the comparative advantages, as Michael Porter had articulated. We look at the comparative advantage of nations and then finalize what's good for India and what we can open, what we should look for in terms of access in the other country. One important element which I'm sure business and industry is gradually recognizing is government is also supporting domestic manufacturing through ease of doing business, through PLI schemes, simpler approval processes, decriminalization of laws, reduction of compliance burden. Similarly, we are also strengthening quality control orders so that irrational, substandard goods from certain geographies don't hurt India's domestic interests. These 2 steps will help India truly flourish in terms of quality products, because, ladies and gentlemen, you will appreciate, end of the day, there is a consumer also. We have to bother that the consumer gets high quality goods at affordable and competitive prices. And I'm also the Consumer Affairs Minister. So I have to balance protecting Indian industry and business with the interests of consumers. And that's a fine balance where we are willing to protect, but not so much that the consumer gets a raw deal. And that's kind of the way we are going about these negotiations. UAE has already started showing us good results. The African continent opens up through UAE, which is a trading hub. Also, the GCC countries and certain European countries use UAE as a hub. In fact, I have proposed, and I would invite you to take this further to other industry, that we should look at something like an India Mart in Dubai. China has one there, where there was a Hindi phrase, but I don't want to use that here. But it's like there'll be showrooms in the front and godowns or stockpiles at the back. And people from all over the world or other parts of the world go there. In the showrooms, they select products, place orders, make payment, and the goods are shipped out literally on real-time basis from godowns. तो आगे दुकान है और पीछे warehouse है, something of that sort.
Yeah, the Carrefours are very big in Dubai. We should have a Chauraha, perhaps, where the Indian industry is able to showcase and win its orders. So, in that context, the other agreement that was signed was for rupee or local currency usage in imports and exports. Is there anything further that you can enlighten us? How much do you expect that?
You know, this concept started, I think it was 30th or 31st of March last year, when I'd gone for the closing ceremony of Dubai Expo.
Okay.
And I had called on the Commerce Minister, Sheikh Hamid. It was a courtesy call for 15 minutes. We got talking. And in the course of conversation, I was trying to convince him that they should allow UPI and the RuPay card in all of UAE. And I was telling him, you have 8 million or 10 million people. Why doesn't the government give everybody a RuPay card? Because you can't get it at a lower cost. Financial transactions are impossible. Nothing can be better than UPI. And while talking about it, we got going to a rupee dirham trade. And we recognize that India and UAE almost have a balanced trade, both import and export, because we import oil from there, we export a lot of goods. And they convert goods from dirham to dollar, comes to India, converts to rupee, and vice versa. The amount of money we pay to banks and exchange risk and exchange costs would easily be 5-6%, if not more, in some small cases. For MSMEs, it could be even more. Now imagine that's more than the profit we make on exports. Imagine how our competitiveness will go up. And that 15-minute meeting lasted an hour and a half. And he was so excited, we almost ran through the steps up to what happens to the finishing balances, either in rupee or dirham. That will remain, which we can settle at the end of the financial year. Of course, I was telling him, I'll pay you dollars at the end of the year if you have a surplus. He was saying, don't pay me. Give me bonds instead. If the government gives me guaranteed bonds, I'd love to have bonds from India.
Okay.
They're looking for investment in India in a very big way. So it's really a win-win. I compliment Prime Minister Modi for his bold vision to, in such a short period of time, to actualize this very game-changing mechanism between UAE and India to trade directly. It really has the potential of becoming a game changer.
Okay. Oh, now I get it. That's why the Reserve Bank's Vostro account opening said that the rupee balances can be invested in Indian government bonds. Okay, now we get the link to the story. Mr. Minister, now give us a headline. When can we get something out of the UK? Because I know that you've been extremely busy with the UK FTA talks. We hear a lot of whiskey talk over there. I mean, I would assume that an agreement is round the corner. Can you give us some timelines and any details that you can share at this stage?
Well, round the corner depends. I'm right now sitting, and this is probably my first VC I'm doing from the new convention center, the G20 Convention Center, that's coming up at Pragati Maidan, which the Honorable Prime Minister will be dedicating to the nation on 26th of July, 3 days from now on Wednesday. So I should have apologized in the beginning. I'm sorry I'm running late, but I was looking at the whole 123-acre complex and all the arrangements, and it took longer than I had envisaged. So why I'm raising this issue is you'll appreciate that round the corner in this complex could take me about 3 hours this afternoon. I came in at 5, and I think I was able to join you at about 8. I was here dot at 5. So, well, it is round the corner, but the corners are always large, particularly when two $3.5 trillion economies are negotiating.
Yes.
I've just come back after a very successful and fruitful meeting, or series of meetings, both with UK and with EFTA in London. In fact, the EFTA teams flew down from different countries to London to negotiate with us. So I did 2 rounds with UK and then 2 rounds with EFTA in London. So I'm just showing you the sincerity and the seriousness that they are demonstrating to do the agreement with India. So we are close, but of course, these things, there's never a timeline. We have to get the best deal for India. We
Absolutely.
continue to engage at government level, industry level, and I assure you that what's going to come out is going to please almost everybody in the country.
Well, that's very good to hear, sir. So, can we at least say that in FY24, we should have one of these agreements in place, either the ECTA or the UK, or some kind of an agreement with Canada? Can we expect?
लता ये मोदी गवर्नमेंट है, आप इतना मॉडेस्ट एक्सपेक्टेशन रखोगे तो
Okay.
हमको क्या प्रोत्साहन मिलेगा ज्यादा काम करने का?
Okay, so September, is it?
So
Sorry. I
we
can
have to
see
be
that you're
more
very busy
ambitious
with
than that.
G20 meetings. And that's why I thought it's beyond September, since that's when the
No,
baton will pass away.
you said 24, I think.
I said
2020.
FY24, so that will be March 31st, 2024. So actually, I'm giving you only 7-8 months. But
Yes.
should we have one of these
It's a glass half full and half empty.
Okay.
So now you can choose whatever you want to take out of it.
I'm trying to get a headline, and I'm trying my best. Okay.
You know, 9 years even we get trained working with you.
Okay, okay. But UK is the one that's ahead of the other agreements? Likely?
You remember the good old days? I think we were in school almost around the same time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
Or about thereabouts. You were a couple of years senior to me.
Okay. Yes.
It's like a marathon or even a three-legged race. So you keep moving the needle up and down. So right now, I can only tell you we have Canada, we have EFTA, and we have UK. All three running in parallel. Somebody goes ahead, and then somebody realizes they need to pick up. They move faster. So it's a race to the top.
Okay. Well, the other question that I'm sure everyone in the among the viewers would want to know, among the audience here, can you tell us anything more about anything you would have cracked on the semiconductor front? I know that along with the PLIs, the government has announced a huge package, 50% partnership or capex that the government will put in for semiconductor. Is there any announcement, any update that you can share?
Well, it's one of the important strategic sectors with significant potential. Our studies suggest that by 2030, given the massive increase in electronics that we are using in everything, whether it's automobiles, our gadgets at home, our gadgets in the office, the semiconductor business is expected to be about $100 billion in India.
Oh, my.
Post-COVID, everybody recognizes the importance of having a ecosystem and a skin in the game of the entire semiconductor chain. And this is a system that comes in phases. You normally start with assembly, testing, and packaging. I think it's ATP or ATMP or something. The various stages. Design is an important element, which is already happening in India in a big way. We had some announcements during Prime Minister's visit where
Yes,
advanced
Micron
technologies, Micron. So it's a process. Gina Raimondo, the Commerce Secretary of US, and I had entered into a semiconductor agreement, an MOU, where US and India would partner with each other. When she came here, I think it was during Holi,
Yes.
when we announced it. And since then, it's been a one-way traffic where we are increasing our engagement. The industry there continues to engage very deeply with us. My colleague, Mr. Vaishnav and Rajiv Chandrasekhar are focusing on attracting the best of companies from across the world. I mean, the interest is phenomenal. But it's process driven. These are things that don't happen overnight. And being a business journalist, you recognize that there's a lot that goes in the background before a final investment decision, location, and all of those things are decided. It's not like somebody in our home state in Mumbai, in Maharashtra, in Mumbai, some of the politicians who said, "Oh, our government, we lost our government," and then the project decided to shift to another neighboring states. These decisions don't happen like that.
Yes, I
These
agree.
are decisions where we have long drawn series of engagements, visits. You remember IBM and all used to have that plant location services.
Oh,
They
yes.
actually have whole teams which determine the best, most suitable site for every project. So these are process driven, but I can assure you that many companies, not only advanced technologies and Micron, but many companies are already looking at different levels of engagement. Foxconn is looking at it in a different perspective. Vedanta is tying up with other companies. Tatas are getting active in that space. I'm losing track. There's so much happening in that phase.
Okay, fair point. So, because you referred to the fact that as Consumer Affairs Minister, you have your hands full, I'm sure everyone has one basic question. Will you be able to maintain the price of tomatoes at 70 rupees? You can see the response from the audience.
See, by the way, Lata, I'm glad you raised this point. Tomato prices, as I'm sure you are aware, traditionally, and I have the charts, we collect
Yes.
prices of a variety of products that affect the consumer from 500 plus locations all over the country. We look at brands, unbranded goods. We look at small shops, kirana stores, mom and pop stores, the large retail, groceries. So it's a elaborate network that we have created and expanded over the last 3 years. With that data, we are able to assess when the prices go up and come down. Tomatoes this year went up beyond the norm, but about 150 rupees or thereabouts during this pre-monsoon period or early monsoon period was traditionally the price in many parts of India. And it's a process which is because I hope everybody knows tomatoes cannot be stored. And Indian consumers don't like processed tomatoes. The women of or the cooks or the chefs or whoever is cooking likes that feel of that fresh tomato.
Fresh tomato.
I actually started a hackathon before these prices went high.
Okay.
We've been working on it for 6 months. I think 30th June, we had launched the hackathon. If any of you will Google, you will see that. We were already concerned that this is an annual affair. We need to find new solutions to storage or processing to make it more affordable. I know dehydration because my wife gets that done for the kids. She gets these things dehydrated and sent
Sent it home.
for the kids to use. But she told me it's very expensive. So we're getting the startups to see if we can find better systems and we can look at socializing the price over the weeks so that even in those high price periods, we can have sufficient stocks. This is for the first time in India's history that government activated processes move tomatoes from the producing areas to North India, East India, Northeast India, areas which are not traditionally tomato growing and which are affected because of the heavy rains and floods in the hills, which we are all aware of.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's a prakrutik apada hai.
Yes.
So nature has caused this. But this is a government which is continuously looking for solutions to these items. Now we are drawing up an SOP. We are using AI to assess the price movements of different products during the year. And then we're going to try and see how we can institutionalize. Maybe it's tomatoes in one season, cucumber in another season, potatoes in a third season, and maybe chili in another season. So I don't know. The teams are working on it. We're trying to get the startups engaged in it, and hopefully we'll come up with good solutions. Again, give us some time to stabilize this process, but the tomato experiment has worked wonders. I can
Yes.
tell you that.
The announcement
It's
itself has
just
been
worked
most.
like magic across the country.
Yes, absolutely. The announcement itself helped, and at least we are not seeing three figures anymore. Mr. Minister, since you're also in textiles, let me try and push one question over there as well. I know we are now perhaps eating into the time. But there is a bit of
Lata,
worry.
Lata, if I may interrupt,
Sure.
I'll be happy if you call me Piyush or whatever. I think at least there are many of your, I can see in the audience many friends. They know that I'm not minister, I'm a friend of industry and business.
Okay. Well, you have to maintain the decorum when you are coming here as a minister. So it'll be Piyush when we meet off air. Okay, Mr. Minister, just want to know on this issue of, the textile, the spinning industry, spinning units in down south have actually stopped spinning for the last 2 weeks. That made headlines about 2 weeks back. Is there anything, I know it's an extremely difficult solution because cotton prices in India are expensive, because of the rains, as well the demand from several countries could have fallen because of the rise in interest rates in several countries. Is there anything coming for the spinning units on the textile front?
Lataji, two things have happened. Of course, we are seized of the matter, we are in dialogue with them. But the important thing is it's not only about cotton prices. Cotton prices are broadly, they equate themselves. And particularly for exports, cotton prices do not get affected by any duties or anything. You get cotton duty free for exports. The important thing is that internationally, because of the recessionary trend, which fortunately we in India are not feeling, and Prime Minister Modi's astute management of the economy, Nirmalaji's astute management of the economy has helped India be that bright star in the world, continuing with relentless 6-7% growth, fastest growing large economy in the world. But large parts of the developed world, which is our main market, is facing recessionary trends. Discretionary spending is down. We are all aware of it. Therefore, prices are also down. Demand is down. Many of the large purchasers are destocking. So it's a time period which happens during recessionary times, and we are conscious of it. It has led to some adverse impact on our exports also, both due to lower prices and in some cases people who are getting stocks out of the system. Petroleum prices being down have also led to some softening of exports. But I think these are periods of time where resilience of the Indian economy shows itself up. Fortunately, we have a large domestic market and large demand internally, because of which, by and large, industry continues to perform well. Few sectors may have an impact for a few weeks, but I'm sure we'll make up for it as we are expanding our outreach internationally to help our different sectors, particularly textile, go across the world, try and capture new markets with new and sustainable products.
Well, a final question, sir. Reaching the end of the allotted time. What's really stood out for India is not just goods export, but in the last 3 years, the almost exponential I want to know if you have anything specific for services exports, and whether you have any targets that you are looking at, in a year, 2 years, 3 years, your sight in terms of services exports and exports in general.
The mic was not very clear, but broadly, what I could figure out is you're asking what the government would do to encourage service exports.
Services exports, yes, sir.
Our services exports have grown from about $194 billion to about, I think, 325 it was last year. So it's really a phenomenal 55% growth in 2 years. Sometimes this scorching pace of growth has its own impact, that people's expectations start benchmarking themselves on that pace. So first of all, I think we should be more modest in our expectations for the current year. Secondly, look at the success of the IT sector. The entire success stems from the fact that they kept government out of their business. They stood on their own feet on the strength of their capabilities, their technological advancements, the skill and talent that Indian young boys and girls have. My own belief is government should remain out of the services sector. This clutches on which over the last so many years exports or Indian industry was sought to be protected have actually hurt India. We should look at our competitive and comparative advantages, encourage services sector to make India competitive and a compulsive proposition. Tourism, we don't need clutches. India is a compulsive tourism destination. IT, we need to reorient to artificial intelligence, quantum computing, newer areas, semiconductor design, newer areas which the world is wanting. Pharma, we need to attract innovation R&D in India. Those don't come because of subsidies. They come on the strength of seamless ease of doing business. I invite you and your colleagues and all the audience, give us some ideas how to make the journey of an entrepreneur, how to make the journey of an investor much more exciting, smooth, and I think that's the best way to get India on the global map as a success story.
I can tell you that you must be perhaps the first time a minister saying that I don't want to get into a sector, let it learn to grow on its own. That itself would be music to the ears of industry. The important part is that the government has faith and trust that the market and Indian enterprise will grow on their own in this sector. And they shouldn't be asking for crutches or shouldn't be asking for controls either. Any numbers you're looking at this year, sir, just as a final headline?
I'm in dialogue with all the export promotion councils and with all the missions. We recognize that there is stress. Most export promotion councils tell me that they believe that the destocking exercise should take another 2 or 3 months, and the second half of the year will see better outcomes. But the jury is out. I haven't come up with a number as yet.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And congratulations once again to CARE and wish you all the best. I was hearing about some good things that CARE Ratings is doing in terms of sovereign ratings and developing newer products. I wish them all the very best in the years to come.
Honorable Minister, we request you to please share your address, which you had for the theme for the event, which is
I think we've had a very good conversation. Do you really need anything more? I think Lata has covered it all.
A message from the minister will always help, sir.
Yes, sir.
Well, I can only give a short message. As the Honorable Prime Minister had said, and I'd like to quote, considering the size of our economy and the potential, our manufacturing and services industry base, there is a tremendous potential for export growth. Somehow, over the years, we've remained more inward looking. And for any developed nation to prosper and grow, we need to look at an outward, a greater degree of international engagements. So I would like all of you to look outward, to look at the world markets. And when you're doing that, your two defining principles, I would say even more important than cost competitiveness, will be Z, the Z factor. Zero effect, zero defect. It's sustainability and quality that will drive the India story in the years to come. We on our part are ready and willing and desire to be a part of this journey with you as colleagues, as facilitators. Please bank on us, please call upon us for ease of doing business, for helping you in your journey through less compliance burden, more online activities. Anywhere you see any irregularity, you see any rent seeking, Prime Minister Modi has been working relentlessly for a Bhrashtachar Mukt Bharat, corruption free India. Don't spare anybody at all. Top to bottom, if you have any problem anytime, all of us are at your service. Please don't encourage any irregularity. We want the world to recognize India as a corruption-free India. Bhrashtachar Mukt Bharat. यही हमारा एकमात्र aim है. If you don't support us, we'll not be able to do it. Please support us. Be a part of this journey. We are there to work with you hand in hand so that the world sees upon India as the best place to do business, the best place to work with. And I assure you, the 140 crore aspirational young India, our 3 Ds, demographic dividend, the young population, 27, 28-year average age, expected to be so for the next 3 decades, generates that demand, local demand, which will help you with economies of scale, making your goods more competitive and economic for the world. And finally, our vibrant democracy with the judiciary, with the strong media, parliament, processes, institutions, and a listening government. We have all the right ingredients for India to capitalize on the global effort to do friendshoring, to do more and more engagement with trusted partners. Let's collaborate and expand the synergy between industry and government, between the private sector and the citizens of India, working closely with all of us to make India a developed nation by 2047 and meet the aspirations of 140 crore Indians. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for your illuminating address, sir. We would now like to call upon Revati Kasture for a word of thanks.
Respected dignitaries, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me immense pleasure to propose the vote of thanks for today's CareEdge conversations. As you all know, we are celebrating 30 years anniversary this year, and it has been a wonderful experience sharing this occasion with all of you. First and foremost, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our esteemed chief guest for the event, Shri Piyush Goyal ji, Honorable Minister of Commerce and Industry, Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution and Textiles, Government of India. So we are extremely privileged that despite your busy schedule, you took out time to be with us today and shared your valuable thoughts on how collaboration can spur economic growth. I also take this opportunity to sincerely thank Mr. Najib Shah, Chairman, along with the Board of Directors of CareEdge Ratings, and Mr. Mehul Pandya, MD and CEO of CareEdge Ratings, for their presence, guidance, and commitment to the organization. We look forward to many more successful years of CareEdge under your able leadership, sirs. My special thanks are also due to eminent journalist and anchor, Ms. Lata Venkatesh, Executive Editor, CNBC TV 18. Ma'am, your presence here today has added immense value to the evening, and we can't think to thank you enough for taking time out and sharing your thoughts, your insights, and supporting this event. Thank you. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all the guests this evening to be present here who took out the time and took the effort in the inclement weather of Mumbai to come here and grace the occasion. I would also like to acknowledge the entire team of CareEdge that worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make and organize this event seamlessly. I would once again thank all dignitaries, speakers, and guests for making this evening event memorable. Your insights have broadened our vision and motivated us to collaborate for accelerating India's economic progress. Jai Hind.